This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we continue our Why I Coach series with the head coaches of Bates Golf and Tennis, Henry Fall and Paul Gastonguay. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. Hired by Bates in August of 2019, Henry Fall was a four-year starter on the Elms College varsity golf team, graduating in 2014. He was a two-year captain and led the Blazers to New England Collegiate Conference titles as a first year and as a senior. In his senior season, the Blazers qualified for the NCAA Championships for the first time in program history. Fall also excelled in the classroom, earning academic all-conference honors every year. A 2010 graduate of Mount Ararat High School in nearby Topsham, Maine, Fall is now the youngest head coach at Bates.
You know, it's funny. I bounced around a little bit after college there. You know, I picked up the game when I was 7 years old and played competitively through high school and college. And I think I just got, maybe a little burnt out at the time. And I was working at a golf course up here in Maine, and, I really enjoyed it, but it was always golf. So I think I kind of needed a break there. And quickly I found that, this is my passion. This is what I love to do. So I quickly got back into it, and I found all along that, even back in my junior golfing days, I really enjoyed coaching and offering tips to fellow playing partners and things of that nature. Junior golf camps I always helped out with. And I just, it kind of dawned on me, like, this is what I love to do. I love to play and coach the game.
And any mentors or any people you went to for advice when you decided to, maybe pursue the Bates position, for instance, or in terms of, transitioning into college coaching?
Well, I've been so fortunate. I've had so many fabulous mentors. Kevin Joseph at Mere Creek in Brunswick. I mean, that's who I first learned from when I was 7 years old. Outstanding coach himself. And John Hickson, Craig Coles, who I played for at Elms College, and various others, Paul Pivaronis down at the Woodlands. I mean, I've had some exceptional coaches in my day, and I've learned a lot from them. And, basically it's kind of come full circle, because any of the lessons I've offered or coaching I've given, they were a part of that. And I think, I owe them a lot.
And then from a coaching perspective, coaching college athletes, what's the similarities, differences between coaching someone who's almost just getting started at golfing, right? I mean, because I'm sure you've coached all different skill levels.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely a difference. And, someone that's just picking up the club, I mean, it's kind of a daunting task. You got this little club head at the end of a shaft, and you're trying to hit this little white ball. And I get it. It's kind of a scary proposition, but at the same time, when you have that beginner golfer hit a shot solidly, seeing the reaction on their face is just so rewarding. But yeah, certainly at the college level, and when you're recruiting players that have some talent and have been playing the game for, usually at least a few years anyways, at that point, it's really more about structuring your practices around, certain areas that they can improve on, and, making sure that the practices are sort of structured around those areas. Yeah.
What are some of the highlights so far of your time at Bates in terms of, obviously, last season? You were able to play in the fall last year. The spring, unfortunately, ended up getting canceled. But what were some of the highlights from last fall?
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting start to my college coaching career.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, last fall was just awesome, being able to, travel around to a few of these competitions, go down to Williams with both teams was just, that was a tournament I played at in Elms College, and that place is kind of near and dear to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just being able to sort of lend a helping hand, and be able to go to the golf course at Martindale with the teams, and and sort of see them get a little bit of an escape from the college setting there. I think it's nice for them to kind of get away from campus once in a while and play these unique, beautiful golf courses. So I think what's been so great is the fact that, I graduated from Elms 2014, and, here we are like a little more than 5 years later. And I can easily reflect on my time and those sort of memories. And now I get to see it with the current students. And I love seeing that.
I want to ask you a little bit about your use of Instagram, because I think of all our coaches here at Bates, you probably use Instagram the most, whether it be Bates Golf or your own personal account. From a coaching perspective, how do you use social media to kind of enhance what you're doing from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, it's probably borderline addiction at this point. Probably not healthy, but no, I really try to use it to obviously sort of grow my following, and I use it for personal reasons as well with my online coaching. But as far as like the Bates side of things, yeah, I think it's important nowadays that you have some exposure, because I think it people want to see what you're up to and what you're able to provide. And it's especially for like my online coaching, like even just showing some lessons or some tips that they can take, and give them sort of a sample size of what they might get from me on a one-on-one basis. So
Seems like you get a lot of examples from the professional circuits, right? I mean, it seems like you are paying close attention to what the pros are doing, kind of. I mean, how do you kind of translate that to maybe more the college level in terms of, because some things the pros do is just like, it's almost incomprehensible, but I'm sure there's lessons to be learned, right?
no, yeah, certainly. It's like you watch them on TV. The thing I always keep in mind, I try to communicate to students, is when you're watching these pros on TV, especially on the weekends, I mean, you're watching them at their absolute best. They're not always playing that well. They have off weeks where they're shooting in the mid 80s or low 80s. Like it happens to the best of them. So you got to keep that in mind and kind of take some of their rounds with a grain of salt. But certainly the way they practice and the way they go about, even getting into a shot versus just their technique, those things I try to point out to people is like, they're practicing in a structured way. They're not always practicing 10, 12 hours a day like they might indicate. It's really more structured and, focused on the shot at hand and things that they can control versus always getting consumed with technique and all this other stuff.
What's the balance there between technique and just the mental side of the sport? Because golf, a lot of people describe it as a frustrating sport, right? And so controlling that frustration, I'm sure, is a big part of it, right?
It's definitely not frustrating. No, it definitely is. Yeah, golf can be pretty frustrating. You hit good shots and it's like they get penalized. You hit bad shots and they get rewarded. It's just a funny sport, but any other sports like that too. We're just out there trying to get a white ball in the hole. I mean, what can you say? But yeah, I mean, you got to make the best of it and just have some fun with it. And that's what I love about coaching these college students is, like I said, it's sort of an escape for them. And I try to just, keep their heads up a little bit. I know it can be, as you say, a little bit of a frustrating game at times, but at the same time, you're out playing like these beautiful golf courses and getting away from campus for a little bit and traveling. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. And hopefully we'll be back to that soon.
I was going to ask, how much have you gotten to work at all with the student athletes this fall? Because obviously teams could practice. Golf is pretty socially distanced. How are you able to, or not able perhaps, to work with them?
Yeah, it was an interesting fall. I mean, we were able to use our simulator room, sort of kept that capacity down, obviously. But and then we also went to Martindale, our home course, and we're able to play there a little bit. So. It was kind of a light season. We didn't get it too aggressive with our practices. But certainly, I definitely opened up the opportunity for them to ask questions and we could work on some aspects of their game. And but anytime we had the opportunity to just go out and play, that's kind of what I encourage them to do. And we also were able to get up to Belgrade Lakes to play 9 holes up there. I have a good friend that is the owner there. So it was nice to, get away from campus for that. And I think they really enjoyed being able to play some fall golf in Maine with the foliage. It's just best time of the year.
In terms of the first years, how are you able to, integrate them into the team when there wasn't, competitions and whatnot? How did that process go? Because I know you have a number of them this year.
Yeah. No, I tried to, focus a little of my attention on the fact that, hey, they're coming into this, their first year, and it's a totally new environment. And then you add in everything that's going on with the coronavirus. So, certainly it was challenging. And I just wanted, again, to offer them a sort of space where they could come and practice, and we could work on some things and kind of get their mind off of studies and stuff for a little bit. And, I think the trip helped up to Belgrade. I think they also had some sort of team, not gatherings, but like some outside dinners and things of that nature where they could kind of get together with the rest of the team so they could, sort of communicate with the upperclassmen and things like that. So I think it was a productive fall. Obviously, there's things that made it very challenging, but hopefully moving forward, we're in a good place.
In a typical practice, maybe not in the COVID times, when you're at Martindale, how are you kind of overseeing things? I mean, because golf being very spread out, are you just in a cart going all over the place, or how does that kind of go for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I mean, typically, in the fall and spring, like, they've been playing golf for as long as they've been playing golf, right? But also they've been playing all summer leading up into the season. So ideally at that point, we're not really making any major swing adjustments or technical changes. At that point, it's like, just let's get them out. Let's get them playing golf, playing the sport. And, if I see something, obviously I can chime in and help. But, at that point, I really just want them getting out in the course. So, they go to the first tee and I'll drive around group to group. We might work on short game because that's obviously an important part of the game. And it really is something that a lot of college players can quickly improve. So, that's the quickest way to improve your scoring. So we'll focus on short game, but also, just get out and play the game.
Do you ever share your experiences in college as a golfer with them in terms of, relatable experiences, I guess, to help them grow?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Even if we're out on the golf course and, they're, whether it's under a tree or, certain lies, like I can definitely bring up a past situation that I've dealt with and how I played that shot, or, even like I said, we go down to Williams College, we play at Taconic, and, you're standing up on the ninth hole, it's 175, it's downhill into the wind, and, figuring out the sort of yardage adjustments, not to mention you're at altitude, you're a couple thousand feet up versus, in Lewiston, Maine. So, all these things that you can sort of relate to and, sort of communicate with them about the fact that, I've sort of been there and done that.
What do you enjoy most about coaching? What puts a smile on your face each day?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's just like the fact that, you're helping a golfer and, they're struggling with something, or they're waiting for that sort of aha moment, I guess. And, they hit a few shots in a row where it's like, oh, that was pretty juicy. I like that one, and just seeing their reaction on their face. Cause there's, hopefully most of the people listening to this have at least tried to hit a golf ball. But if you haven't, when you've hit one solidly in the center of the face and it goes the way you want it to, there's some feeling you can't describe. And, it's, I think I get, I love seeing the reactions on their faces when they're able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I must say I've hit a couple solid golf shots in my life, but they only went like 150 yards. So I'm not sure what to do about that.
150, that's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Good. On a par 5 with a driver? I don't think so.
Hey, as long as it's down the middle, come on.
Well, I guess any other thoughts you wanted to share about coaching we haven't gotten to discuss yet or anything?
No, like I said, I've been very fortunate and I've had some great mentors, and, you mentioned like Instagram and stuff, like that's just sort of a way for me to kind of give back and offer some tips and coaching. And I just think it can be a frustrating sport at times. Hopefully I can dumb it down here and there, because I at the end of the day, I think our job as coaches is to really help our students self-discover. It's not really about me sort of supplying a bunch of information. It's more me providing a space where you can self-learn and self-coach yourself. And so the less I'm involved, I guess, the better, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Henry Fall, thanks so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Bates College graduate and Lewiston native Paul Gastonguay is among the most respected coaches in college tennis, and the leader of men's and women's programs that perennially rank among the best in Division III. An All-America player himself at Bates, Gastonguay has coached a litany of All-Americans at his alma mater. He graduated from Bates in 1989 and was inducted into the Lewiston-Auburn Sports Hall of Fame in 2006. Coach Gastonguay, when you graduated college from Bates, you played professionally. When did you start to think, I might want to get into coaching as my career in terms of tennis, and specifically maybe at the collegiate level?
Well, I had always coached. My dad ran the rec department program for decades, and that's how I learned how to play tennis. And my brother and I used to coach alongside with my dad, and we, it's amazing how many people I run into around town that say, "Hey, you coached me when I was a little kid," and I don't remember them because now they're near my age. But in terms of, when it really struck me that I wanted to be a collegiate coach, I didn't really realize that until after I had been coaching for a little bit at Yvonne Lendel's club in Greenwich, where I ran a really high-level junior development program. And I developed another program on top of that for the most elite kids called CHAMP. And it was coaching highly advanced and motivated players. That was the acronym. And so when I had this group of, young kids to, kids going up to, through high school looking to play college tennis, they were the most elite players in the region. And we had several who went on to have, very prestigious careers at the D1 level. And I guess it struck me that this is what I truly love. I really love working with high level players, motivated players who want to be the best they can be. And I guess that's where I started thinking about it. And I was coaching there along with training with Yvonne and playing my own tournaments. And after I stopped playing, I coached and ran that junior development program for a couple of years. And I guess when Coach Wigton retired, or I knew he was going to retire, even at that moment, I didn't think it was time. I was 27, I think, 27, 28. And I was finally making money, which I had never been able to do before. I was always paying off my debt from paying, coaches and travel and, tournaments around the country. And so I was finally making good money. I was finally able to buy a car and have an apartment, which hadn't happened before. So I was thinking maybe down the road when I was, maybe in my 40s, it would be something I'd like to do. But then it sort of all came to fruition when Suzanne Coffey gave me a call, and she was the athletic director at the time and was a lacrosse coach and when I was a student athlete at Bates. And she gave me a call and said, why don't you take a look at the position? And so that's what I did. I came up, spent the day, and met a bunch of the staff and, the administrators. And, I had to make sure it was coming back for the right reason because it was my hometown. It's where I went to school. And I want to make sure I was coming back to Bates for the right reasons. And, I think by the end of the day, they had offered me the job. And I said, well, I need to think about it. And I was a very poor negotiator. I think I called them an hour later and said, okay. And I guess the reason for that was my relationship with Coach Wigton was so strong. And, it was such an honor to step into his shoes. And he had been there for 30 some odd years. And and my coach after college, Buddy Schultz, class of 81, Buddy, he's the reason I came to Bates in the first place. And, there was just such a heritage there and having played there. And I was just, it brought back really special memories when I spent the day there and knowing that, I could start fresh and build a program and also be close to my parents and my family, which was a bonus. So that's kind of how it all happened.
What was the transition like coming back, returning, after being away for a few years? And did you pick Coach Wigton's brain a lot in those early years about, how to build the program and everything?
Coach Wigton and I had stayed in touch over the years, and he was always a mentor, and he was always someone that I seeked advice from. And, I had a good understanding of what the program was all about, having played in it and been connected with it for so long. He was great, for foundational information and just the history of the program and just filling me in with the lay of the land, where the NESCAC was. And, it had changed a lot since I had been a player. And with the advent of, the ability to go to NCAAs as a team, that was something we can never do back in the day. And so that really piqued my interest. And that was one of my initial goals, from the get-go, is I want to be a nationally regarded program. We want to challenge for a national championship. And we want to be a force and just build a legacy and a program that Bates can be proud of and all the alumni can be proud of.
So originally you were only coaching the men's team, but I think 2001 you took over the women's program as well. So what was that like?
Well, I was originally the men's tennis and men's squash coach. So I was
Okay.
fall, winter, spring.
Yep.
And John Illig, who was the women's counterpart in the same role, and his expertise was squash. Mm-hmm. He was a good tennis player as well, but that was his passion. And I love coaching squash. I mean, I got to coach Pat Kosker and, some great people over the years. And Pat did an amazing job with the program for forever. But I think it was just more like, hey, my passion is tennis. That's my expertise. I played, that's where I wanted to be as the tennis coach. And I thought I could really be better utilized in building both programs. So the transition was, it wasn't difficult. It meant I was going to be more busy during 2 seasons and then actually have, the in-between season where I could spend more time recruiting and more time working on projects. And so I think it was interesting when I started coaching both programs. It was a new era, and I think both teams became more unified and they became just more linked, and great friendships formed because they could commiserate, right? They both had to deal with me. So they became really close. Like it was like having, a bunch of brothers, a bunch of sisters, and then like a big family. And so it was kind of special actually for the program to, more work for me, but I think it helped us grow both programs in a special way.
And then we had Will Beauregard on the Bobcast a few months ago, I guess now, talk about his career and, an individual national champion. You had competed at NCAAs as an individual when you were at Bates. When he was making those runs at NCAAs, what was it like for you to, kind of coach him through that? Because you had experienced it yourself as a player.
Yeah, he was really our first big time player, and he came in highly touted as a junior. And, but, like every player at every level always needs work. And, Will was a special athlete, like an amazing specimen, mover, like so athletic. He could do anything. And, so, Will, spending time with Will, we refined his game to make it more solid. We didn't want to take his weapons away. We built around his weapons, but I think he had so much ability and talent that it was always a last second decision of what he was going to do, because he had so many options. And what my job as a coach for Will was with someone with that much ability was to refine it and to make it a little bit more solid, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more basic, because his weapons, would show through that. And we didn't need him to have flash, because the flash was natural. We just needed him to learn to be more solid and more consistent, and to build points in a way that would allow him to get to net. And he was a great student, of the game. He was very coachable. So a lot of times really high level players like that aren't as open to new ideas. And Will was amazing that way. I'll be honest, we had to work really hard on his mental game. And he was willing, though. He was willing to put in the work, and he was willing for me to challenge him and to really hold him accountable. And I think, we had some tough times, and sometimes where, like with every player, you have to really, get serious and make sure that, hey, this is what we both want, right? And this is how we're going to get there. And he bought in, and he made some huge strides. And to be a finalist in his junior year and a champion in his senior year, and to be the only player to ever defeat Matt Seeberger from UC Santa Cruz, who had won the Triple Crown multiple times. He lost to him in the finals the year before, and then he had to defeat him in his run to the championship. I think it was in the second round they played. So, but yeah, it was. It's really rewarding now to see Will go through his college career and his professional career. And last summer, COVID. 2 summers ago, we actually coached a recruit camp together, which was really cool. And just to see him present and coach, and to know where his roots were and to see where he is now, is really special. So.
Excellent. You touched on the mental side of the game. I mean, tennis being such an individual sport, unless it's doubles, but it's still a team overall. But from a coaching perspective, how do you go about evaluating players about what kind of style you need to have with them individually? Because I imagine your style has to change a bit depending on who you're dealing with, right?
Right. Our philosophy in our program is to build an all-court player, because then they have an answer for every style of opponent. And our system is built on creating, with a heavy, deep ball and angles, so that we can create a short ball, get in and finish at the net, sort of the way Roger Federer plays. I mean, that's always been the way I've coached, I think, because it gives an answer for every opponent. And the success that we've had over the years, if you look at a Ben Stein, who lost in the finals of the singles championship in 2009 and won the doubles championship with Ararat High in that same year, played in all 9 NCAA matches. Ben was a player that loved to come to net. He just didn't have necessarily the foundation to build points consistently to get there. And so with him, it was different. We had to build the foundation. We had to give him a heavy forehand and a really solid backhand and a big serve, and then the rest of his game could come out, because he had this natural talent and ability to come forward and finish at the net. And so with every player, it's a little different. Everyone has different strengths, and my job as a coach is to build around those strengths, but to build an all-court player that has solutions for every type of opponent.
You touched on, obviously, George Wiggan being a big mentor for you. Who were some other mentors that have really influenced your coaching over the years?
Well, I've been blessed to work with so many, very special coaches and world-renowned players. But I think, my dad, and my mom was an art teacher, but my dad was a coach and a teacher. And I think teaching is in our blood. And, it was something that they gave me, that gift, the ability to really connect with their students. And I think, that foundation was huge in terms of knowing how to reach each player, but also the discipline it takes and the time commitment, the passion that is required to reach everyone. And I would say that is, my biggest foundation. But then, the ability to work with Buddy Schultz after college in terms of technical and strategic and the mental game. And he had played at, world-class level and been in all the slams. And, for me to get that kind of knowledge was huge. I wish I had it when I was 14, 15. Instead, I got it when I was 22. So it all comes around when it comes around. But, I got a lot of my, elite coaching after college. And that's when my game really went through the roof. I always knew how to compete, and Coach Wigton was really impressive that way. We always wanted to compete, and he held us accountable, and we knew how to be professional and how to conduct ourselves and how to fight. And then, getting to work with Buddy after college was huge. He just gave me so many different tools, learning this all court game, learning how to volley, learning how to do things at that next level. And then when I was training with Yvonne Lendl, it was a really incredible opportunity for me to, gain that experience and to learn from a champion. And he was very giving that way. He was always, treated me as a peer. And after our training session, he would say to me, well, what do you think, I could have done better in those points? And what could I have done better in this situation? And I was like, you're asking me? So, but it taught me how to really be a student of the game and to really observe and to help me be a better coach when I became a coach, because I had to coach myself when I was playing. And his coach, Tony Roach, the Australian great, was just an incredible mind and just a very gracious guy and very down to earth. And we would just talk shop all the time. And so I learned so much from Tony and Chris Lewis, one of Yvonne's travel training partners, who was a Wimbledon finalist. Chris was just, again, very generous with his time, and we would talk shop all the time. He was very helpful, giving me advice. And this, I guess that was sort of the story of my life, was just picking the brains of these great minds and then putting it all together in a system. Another guy I worked with who was extremely helpful was Craig Edwards, who coached the Bryan brothers. He was coaching a couple of my friends and was traveling with them. And I'd buy him dinner, and because he just helped me out all the time. He'd give me advice. He helped me with my game, and he was, really, really helpful. So, there's been a bunch over the years. Just watching my peers in the NESCAC, like a Jim Watson from Tufts University was just a great coach and a great mentor. Played professionally as well. But so many coaches over the years that I've just sort of been in contact with or coached alongside and just observed. Bob Hansen from UC Santa Cruz I remember my first year playing at Bates, and I made nationals, and I actually played one of his guys who was a foreign exchange student from Argentina, and I ended up losing to him in 3 sets in the first round at NCAAs. It was an excellent match, and came down to the wire. And I just remember watching Bob's teams and the joy that they had when they loved to compete, but they didn't do it in a stressful way. They did it because they just loved to compete for each other. And I knew back then that was something that was very special. I'm like, wow, to have a team that just could be in that mode for each other all the time is something I would love to have and something I would love to create. And lo and behold, years later, we had the amazing opportunity to work with Dr. Jerry Lynch. And Dr. Lynch was someone who's very close to the Santa Cruz program. He lived in UC Santa Cruz, and he worked with their team almost every day for decades. And when I got to work with Dr. Jerry Lynch, who's a world-renowned sports psychologist, he now he's been with the Golden State Warriors and the San Jose Quakes and, Maryland women's lacrosse and North Carolina women's lacrosse, Syracuse women's lacrosse, etc., Middlebury tennis. He's just an amazing coach as well, coaching the mental side of things, coaching the team culture, coaching how to be as a coach and how to best reach your team and how to get your team to perform and be that way that I witnessed UC Santa Cruz way back then. And that's that thing that was palpable. I could feel it. And I was like, geez, that's what I want. That's what I'm working hard to create at Bates. And, about 8 years ago when we started working with Jerry, it really helped kind of gel things together and build our culture even stronger. So I would say those are all, sort of the key players in my life as a coach.
Awesome. I'm curious. Tennis matches in college, they can last, 7 hours before all the individual matches are done and stuff. As a coach, during the actual matches, when they're going on a bunch of simultaneous matches, how do you approach that? How are you knowing who to focus on, basically, right?
I'll tell you, it's a challenge, and that's why we have to train our athletes to be able to think for themselves and coach themselves. But I think that's one of my strengths as a coach is to be able to look at all the matches as a whole, but then sort of see where the hot spots are and see maybe who's struggling, see who's doing what well. And so I can go around and give them cues and hey, keep doing this. This is working. Look, we need to adjust this. Here's a tactic I would try. Or yeah, when you did this, you actually built a great point and you were maybe didn't make that volley, but you were very successful. Do that again. And so I think that's one of my skill sets that I'm, aside from developing the players, but within the development, when I'm working with them is uniting that with a future match is say, okay, this is the scenario we're going to use this in. This is why we're doing this today, because when a player does this, this is what we're going to do. This is a solution. And so in a match, it's pretty easy to draw on that and go, hey, remember that what we worked on the other day? This is exactly the scenario. Let's do that. And so, you can't always come up with every single thing that's going to happen in a match the week before. But it's sort of an ongoing development. It's an ongoing evolution with each player and helping them to just learn to think on their feet, learn to be able to adjust, learn to, sort of be I equate it to a crime scene investigator after each point. Like, what really happened? Where was I? Where was my opponent? What type of ball was I dealing with? And from those three factors, you can understand, okay, what should my, was I on offense? Was I neutral? Was I defensive? What should my shot selection have been there? Or maybe it was the correct shot selection and I need to repeat that again. So we have a whole between point routine and system where, they meditate, they breathe, and they visualize what's working and what needs, adjusting. And so, that's my role as a coach is to make sure they're prepared the best way they can. But on the fly in a match, they have to provide the grit. They have to provide the heart, the hustle, the fight, the intensity, all that stuff. And they do that for their teammates. It's not for them. They do it for each other. And my role is to just sort of, point them in the right direction and say, hey, refine this, adjust this. Hey, this is right on, keep it up. And when there's 6 matches going at once, it's brutal. There's a lot. And that's why each player has to be really proficient and handle their own stuff. But I try to be an effective coach from the sideline and, just, hey, this is what I'm observing and this is what I think would work. and my players are, they're great, and they're willing to try anything, and they're very coachable. So I think that's what I always look for in my recruits, is someone who is going to be adaptable and will want to fight through and figure it out.
How would you compare the Bates student athlete experience now to when you were playing at Bates?
Wow. I was just talking about this with someone the other day. I think the opportunities that they have are much more than what I had as an athlete. For example, we really didn't get funding to go to the ITA championships. And I remember driving all the way down to Philadelphia to play at Swarthmore and Haverford, and it was a Division 2 and 3 event. And I drive down with a teammate on our own. One year I slept at my doubles partner's house in northern New Jersey, and Jim Freilich and I drove down every morning. We left the house at 4:30 in the morning to get there so that we could play the tournament and just go back and forth for 3 days and then drive back to Bates. And, I feel bad when we're more than a half hour away, because it's hard to get hotels in Middlebury sometimes. So I feel like, we have a really high level group. They work so hard. They are sort of the embodiment of what I wanted this program to be. It wasn't necessarily like that when I was here. I used to train with a kid who was number 10 on the team. Ted Barksdale and I, would train every morning at 7 a.m. because most of my teammates didn't really play in between seasons. And I wanted to get better, and he did too. And a couple years later, after I graduated, he was captain of the team. And so, I think our group, I call them gym rats. I mean, both the guys and the girls, they just love to train. They love to, just make themselves better and work at their craft. And they're always looking, at the last match or the last practice. Okay, what tools can I add to my tool belt that will help me defeat this type of opponent next time? What do I need that's going to make a difference? And we work on it together, and they work harder on their own. And I've had, a lot of our athletes at Bates work really hard. I think that's what makes, Bates Athletics special, is they're very driven, and they're great in the classroom as well. I think we've had, 2 of the last 3 years, we've had very, very much, probably almost 100% make the all scholastic team, the ITA all academic team. So proud of that, because it's not something they switch on just for tennis. It's who they are as individuals. They really work hard. They're committed to what they're doing, and they want to be the best they can be. So I feel very blessed to have such a great group on both men's and the women's side.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on coaching you wanted to share we haven't got to talk about?
I think, coaching to me it's all about, the passion for helping our athletes get better. I think I talk about this a lot, is that if I wasn't an athletics coach, I might be a builder, because I love that process of, I'm not very good at building, but if I had gone into that field, I think I would feel the same way. It's like from, the foundation up, and just seeing players transform from where they start and then where they finish. It's just like incredibly satisfying and rewarding. Not from an ego driven place, but just from, the ability to be with such great people and share their journey and see them grow, and as tennis players, but also as people, and then who they become after college it's a really incredible experience. And that's, in a nutshell, why I coach.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, we'll continue our Why I Coach series with head swimming and diving coach Peter Casares and head squash coach Rye Hergeth. That's next time on the Bates Bobcast.
Race, race, Black Caribbean, Black